We all share humanity, whatever our color, whatever our faith, whatever our education. We are all human beings. If one suffers, all should suffer. Man is not an island, as John Donne said. But beyond that, there is that enormous interdependence, that there's a moral independence. If one person, like a Sakharov, suffers the lack of freedom, we ought to all suffer the lack of freedom. There is a continuity in our history and in our relation to each other. And there it is, if 100 million people not very far away are hungry, we ought to do something about it. We're capable of it, but instead we are caught up with the foolishness of fighting each other rather than helping each other.
Please welcome Tom Purekal from the class of 1998. Tom's call to serve has led him back to the University of Notre Dame and the Innovation and Practice Division of the Pulte Institute for Global Development.
Thanks very much. Good afternoon. It's great to be with all of you today. I'm going to share with you a story of faith and being able to take a few risks. Let's start in 1998. I was a recent graduate from this university, and I ended up in New York working on Madison Avenue for one of New York's largest advertising agencies. I was having a great time. I was making a steady salary, working with really bright, strategic people. We were going to photo shoots in Miami and Los Angeles, sushi lunches, all this cool stuff. And I thought, like, well, this is what success could be. But I also felt like something was missing, and I couldn't quite put my finger on it. Fast forward a couple years to the year 2000, I decided I had an extra week's vacation, and I was going to take an adventure vacation and go visit my buddy, Ryan Murphy. Ryan was a fellow RA with me in Dillon Hall, and Ryan had deferred his acceptance to a large accounting firm and gone to work instead to volunteer at an organization called Farm of the Child, Finca del Niño, or I'll refer to it as the Finca. So I didn't know anything about, and Farm of the Child is basically, it's a child care facility located along the north coast of Honduras. I didn't even know where Honduras was. I had to look for it on a map. And I certainly didn't know anything about the context there, such as that the annual average salary was about, for most Hondurans, $600 a year, right? They were constantly plagued by natural disasters, the latest of which at that time was Hurricane Mitch in 1998, that Ryan experienced firsthand and that set the country back by decades. So I showed up at San Pedro Sula Airport on this vacation, and Ryan was there to meet me, and we took this bus, an 8-hour bus ride to the Finca. I had an amazing time. It was great. I got to meet all these volunteers, people who were committing like 1 to 2 years of service there, doing some really cool stuff. I met these amazing kids, got to teach them the school for a bit. It's beautiful. We went night swimming in the Caribbean, the mountains behind us. It's all great. But I was also ready to return back to New York at the end of the week. What I didn't expect was that after I returned, I couldn't fall asleep at nights. I kept thinking, and I don't know if it was a voice or what, saying, why not me? Why couldn't I go volunteer at the Finca? So I applied. I was accepted to go volunteer there for a couple of years. Quit my job in New York. But before I went, I realized there were a few issues I needed to navigate. The first of which was, I thought my parents were going to disown me. I was the immigrant son of parents from India, and they honestly thought that I was taking the family backwards. I also had about $20,000 in student loans. I'm like, well, who's going to pay this off? Fortunately, I found out deferring loans at that time for educational loans was actually really easy. So check that box. The third thing was that I also had to raise about $10,000 just to meet my own expenses in Honduras. Things like medical care, travel, stipends, language school. I didn't speak a word of Spanish, right? And so I had to reach out. I had some savings of my own, but I also had to reach out to friends and family. One of the people who I reached out to was Father Ted. And Father Ted knew of the finca quite well. And so he sent me a check for $300, which was great, and helped contribute to my time at the finca. The stuff that we encountered at the finca, problems abounded. I should say that I left for language school on August 2001, just a month, so I left New York. This is a month before 9/11. I arrived in Honduras on October 1st, 2001, and that started the volunteer commitment. There were a myriad of issues to deal with. I went down as a cocky advertising executive, lots of work and strategy, thinking I'm gonna fix this place up in a few months and we'll be great. I learned just how much I needed to learn through the stories of our kids who made themselves vulnerable as they shared with me how they ended up at the finca. Through the families that I got to know, and learning about the cycles of abuse and poverty that entrapped them. So I could not have done this without a supportive community, with people like Andrea Meckenbauer, who to this day is one of the smartest people that I know, who could have done anything, but she decided to spend 3 years of her life at the finca and then adopted 3 kids from the orphanage afterwards. Chris Bystad, who graduated from here with an architecture degree and was also on the football team and also went down to the finca. Amazing people who've gone on to do remarkable work afterwards as well. This would help shape a career path for me that I could not have expected. It helped me to take leaps, which would ultimately lead me to Catholic Relief Services, where I would work with communities in Orissa, India, that suffered perennial floods and that would also experience some of the worst interreligious fighting in decades. It enabled me to work alongside the people of South Sudan as they worked towards their independence, but then also the painful descent into civil war. It allowed me to be with the people of Myanmar as they ultimately transitioned to a semi-autonomous civilian government. Great experiences. And then ultimately, it would lead me back here to Notre Dame to work with the Pulte Institute for Global Development, where we take the brilliant research that happens here at the university and use it to affect projects and programs in countries like Haiti, Honduras, Colombia, Iraq, and all over Africa. What I've learned over the years is that sometimes it's like taking a step forward and 2 steps backwards. There's a lot we need to do. Hearing Father Ted's words that resound in terms of if one person suffers, we all suffer, and the calling that comes with that. But this whole experience, outside of even just teaching me just about the experiences of other people and giving me an opportunity to give of myself, it's been transformational and helping to realize what we're capable of and what's possible if we work with just a little bit of faith. Why not you?